How to work smarter by working less. That's what we're talking about today in Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 80. Please share this on to Ben's Business Book Club, which is my group of avid readers and entrepreneurs who read business and self-help books. And thanks for joining, Tam. So how do we work smarter by working less? This is a kind of concept that I've heard of in books and different places before, but it's something I really realized in the past week when I took a week off of work, and I was forced to do some work on my week off, and it only took me about 2 hours to do the work, and I really did have a big aha, flashing light bulb, obvious moment, and it's the sort of 9 to 5 illusion that we have drilled into us. Most of entrepreneurs come from being employees. Most people who start a business have been employed in the past. And with that kind of background, and especially from our parents, from even coaches or mentors, they've had a background of that 9 to 5 mentality. So the kind of work hard mentality, spend 8 hours a day working minimum, and then we've got other influencers who talk about the sort of 10x rule, working extra, like as many hours as you possibly can. And I just want to share another concept that I believe in that really does work, about this forcing ourselves to work smarter by working less hours and just taking a couple hours away from giving yourself 8 hours, because 8 hours is usually excessive for a full day's work. So in the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, the guy talks, Tim Ferriss talks about this idea that we have agreed to kind of fill up our day with like shuffling papers and different random tasks, and really just kind of arbitrage rather than having a planned focus for the day. And because he says in the book, since you're trapped in the office from that period, you're compelled to create activities to fill the time. Time is wasted because there's so much time available. And then it says, since we have 8 hours to fill, we fill 8 hours. If we had 15 hours, we would fill the 15 hours. And if we have an emergency, for example, you suddenly have to leave work in 2 hours, but you have deadlines pending, then you miraculously come up with the results. And that's what I seen happen in my week when I was really focused on having this week off and I had to get something done. So I decided to get it done as quickly as I possibly could, and it only took me 2 hours. So this is what Tim Ferriss refers to as the Parkinsons Law. And he explains it by the Parkinsons Law dictates that a task will swell in perceived importance and complexity in relation to the time allotted for its completion. So I've talked about the 80-20 principle before, and the 80-20 principle can be matched up with the Parkinson's Law. So 80-20 principle is finding out what to focus on. So what's that 20% that creates 80% of your results? Find that 20% that's the most important. But if you combine that with the Parkinson's Law, which is working less to force the attention on yourself to get the most important things done and delegate the rest before you have to leave. For example, when you set a deadline and you have to leave, you get it done somehow. You have to delegate things that usually, if you've got too much things to do and too little time to do it, it forces us to be more creative and delegate and outsource things that we simply shouldn't be doing to be able to complete this task for the deadline. It's the same as when I come on Facebook Live every week. I know that I'm going to come on live at 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. So when it comes to Wednesday, I've got to have a plan for what I'm going to talk about on this podcast. And that's why I've created 80 podcasts for Ben's Business Podcast, because I've got this structure that forces me to get creative and go, what is this about today? And then deliver it. So having these deadlines and structures in your life really do help to force the tension to make yourself work smarter. So in my week off, that was a discovery. When I worked less, for example, taking my whole week off, I realized that when I really put my mind to it, that I want to get back to being kind of take my mind off of work. I had a thing in front of me I had to get done, sat down and got it done very fast. And all I did in those 2 hours that I worked was I figured out who could do what, and I outsourced everything on my list. And that's ideally, as business owners, what we should be doing, figuring out who can do what, rather than how can I get this done? How can I work hard to get through this and get this done? So this reminds me of a saying that we should plan our life before we plan our business. And it's like you plan in your holidays before you start the year. So plan in sort of 3 weeks worth of holidays scattered throughout the year. Plan that in first before you make your business plans, so that the business plans aren't prioritized over your life, which is your health, love, and your happiness. So like almost we reverse it. So we're putting rather than putting wealth first, we're going for health, love, and happiness, and then wealth, or business. So put your life first and figure out what kind of lifestyle you want, and then use the business to create that. So a good example of this, and someone who really uses this, is Andrew Carnegie, who I've been studying a lot of in this biography by David Nasaw. And there's a really good page I took out of this whole big, thick, chunky book about Andrew Carnegie. He had this really good response to someone who was almost bragging that the fact that they wake up early. They're speaking to Andrew Carnegie. They wake up early, and they get to their office for 7 a.m. in the morning. And Andrew Carnegie responded to him, rather than complimenting him, he said, "You must be a lazy man if it takes you 10 hours to do a day's work." And then he went on to say, what I do is to get good men and never give them orders. And as direction never goes beyond suggestions. He just suggests them because they're good men he's employed. So he's got the good men in place, so he can really just suggest to them what to do, and they have the intuition to figure it out themselves. And he says, here in the morning, I get reports from the men. Within an hour, I have disposed of everything, sent all my suggestions, the day's work's done, and I'm ready to go out and enjoy myself. So what he did is he actually got done in those 2 hours that he worked in a day what most men would do, and men and women would do in a week. And that's what I found so fascinating about Andrew Carnegie and how he designed his life. His lifestyle was, he had a lot of partners who took on the sort of daily, day-to-day decision making, and that left him as the bottleneck of being the person who needs to make decisions, because then he needs to physically be there. And he moved away from Pittsburgh, where he started a steel iron business, he moved away to New York, and he just sent letters and directions and overseen it from New York, which is a long way away back then, because the transportation wasn't as available as it is now. So it took him a long time to get to Pittsburgh. So he would end up not going to board meetings, and he left a lot of responsibility. So he was more just a shareholder, but he had a very large share in the business. So I think Andrew Carnegie really lived this sort of, we've got the 4-hour work week sort of framework now but Andrew Carnegie had this plan in his mind well before his time, and he was using not just like we've got technology, but he was using what he had at his hands. But we're so lucky to have these ideas plus the technology to really systemize, delegate, hire people from other countries. Even people can be working for us remotely in this day and age. So it's the idea of structuring the business, your lifestyle. So planning the lifestyle and structuring the business and systems and people around the lifestyle that you want to create for yourself, so that you're more of a shareholder that doesn't have to do the dirty work, and you're delegating, you're suggesting, telling people what to do if there is a big problem, if it does have to come to you, but only dealing with the big problems, not the small problems that other managers should be dealing with. And so it's the idea of hiring good men and outsourcing the sort of daily decision making. So a couple of actions and how you can implement this is try reducing today's work by 1 hour. Take an hour out of your day today to finish work and get the work done that you've got for the rest of the day. When you're watching this, just finish your work an hour earlier than you normally finish and see if you can get your work done. The answer probably is that you can get it done in less time. So start to try working 7 hours a day instead of 8 hours if you work 8 hours. And whatever amount of hours you do, take an hour off your day and see if you still get the same work done. And it most likely is that you will. So then start to move the ball backwards. And if you want to take more time off, then just take 2 hours. So work 6 hours instead of 8 per day, and slowly move it towards that. And then also plan in your next holiday. So by planning that holiday I had this July, a couple of months back, I knew this was coming up. So I finished up a few jobs that I had to do before this week started, so I could really be in the moment when I took my week off and not thinking too much about all the deadlines that were coming up. And also just make a list of all your sort of tasks that you do on a day-to-day, 10-pound tasks I've called them, and delegate them as well. Use Upwork and Fiverr to delegate those tasks. So I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching, everyone on Instagram and Facebook Live. This is Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 80. Let me know if you watched this video. Please like, comment, share with anyone who might find this interesting, and put in the comments #replay if you're not watching it live with me. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye just now.